There's a lot more to food than what meets the fork. But sometimes you have to take things with a grain of salt. Coming up, let us all give thanks for Thanksgiving. But who are we thanking? Are turkeys really named after turkey? And were canned cranberries offered a plea bargain? Are they old wives' tales, ancient elixirs, or just clever marketing ploys? Every bite you take has a story, every morsel a myth. Is it baked with fact or flavored with fiction? We all learned about Thanksgiving as kids. You know, Pilgrims, Native Americans, the cranberries, the pumpkin pie, and of course, the turkey. But did this national celebration begin with the Pilgrims? Or did our dearest culinary commemoration actually arise hundreds of years later through the persistence of one wishful woman? Should we really thank the Pilgrims for Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving is America's favorite holiday. But the idea of a fall feast goes back to ancient times. The Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans all loved a good party and feasted like kings after a bountiful harvest.
I just can't wait for Black Friday.
Native Americans also marked their fall harvest with meals and celebrations long before the Pilgrims even set foot on North America. Autumn 1621. The Pilgrims had just survived their first year in the New World and thought that was definitely worth celebrating.
We're alive. We should throw a party.
Yeah.
So colony leaders decided to throw a 3-day block party. They organized an epic fall feast and invited some of their new neighbors. But according to home cook Daphne Brogdon, what exactly made it onto the table is up for debate.
Well, it's hard to know exactly what the Pilgrims ate at the first Thanksgiving because they weren't taking pictures and posting them to social media, so who knows what people ate. Turkey is essential to Thanksgiving. I mean, you know, it's like, does Santa come on the 26th? No, he comes on the 24th. Everybody knows that, you know, at night. And turkey has to be on the Thanksgiving table. Well, it's highly unlikely that the Pilgrims and Native Americans feasted on turkey. But even if it was there, it was not the star of the show the way it is now.
What?
It's simply unfathomable. Fine, no turkey. But there had to be mashed potatoes, right?
So you can have a Thanksgiving without turkey, right? But you can't have a Thanksgiving without mashed potatoes. Well, actually, they did. There were no potatoes in North America at that time.
Pumpkin pie? Please say there was pumpkin pie.
How much do we love pumpkin pie? I mean, it's as American as pumpkin pie. Well, not for the first Americans. Nope. No butter, no sugar, no pie.
You're killing me here.
So what was on the menu?
Chicken? Probably a lot of root vegetables.
Yeah, I think they ate rabbit.
Cheese. Dirt.
Dirt? Well, the Pilgrims' whole life centered around food. I mean, there's no corner store, so it was all about how do they get food. Most of the food they would have had at Thanksgiving were meat, cod, lobster, venison, duck, corn, squashes, and nuts, which were in abundance at that time.
Squashes. And although they gave thanks, they didn't officially declare this feast Thanksgiving.
So the Pilgrims were a pretty grateful bunch. They had a lot of feasts of thanks all throughout New England, but it wasn't one day. There was several Thanksgivings. They didn't wind it up with the one big capital T Thanksgiving the way we do.
So when and how did Thanksgiving go from dinner with friends to one nation under tryptophan? And who deserves our thanks for elevating turkey and pumpkin pie to superstar status? Find out when Food, Fact, or Fiction returns. A day full of gratitude and delectable food. But the holiday we know and love didn't actually catch on until hundreds of years after the Pilgrims celebrated their first harvest. The truth is, Thanksgiving actually began with one unwavering woman and a pretty noble cause.
To be honest, you have to find the truth.
Cue patriotic music in 3, 2, 1.
Sarah Josepha Hale should really be called the godmother of Thanksgiving.
I'm gonna make him a pie he can't refuse.
She was a very interesting woman of the 19th century New England. She was an abolitionist, very interested in women's education. She was a publisher. She wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb. I mean, she had a lot of things going on.
But it wasn't until 1827 that Sarah first brought Thanksgiving to life.
So Sarah Hale wrote a book called Northwood. It was an anti-slavery book, and secondarily, it was also a book talking about life and celebrations and feasts, and she thought that this could be a template for a national Thanksgiving. So Sarah grew up in the 19th century in New England, where a very common part of the diet was pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes, turkey. You see where we're going with that?
Huzzah for the pumpkin pie!
The food hit the spot, but our country at that time was split apart. Sarah lived through an era when political tensions had severed our nation in half, the Civil War. So this strong-willed woman came up with a brilliant solution: food. Could a good, wholesome meal help heal our nation? These abolitionists thought so. They began featuring the Thanksgiving feast in their literary works as an emblem of freedom and unity. Not everyone was so quick to jump on the turkey and pie bandwagon, but our Sarah kept plugging away.
So Sarah Hale had been pounding this idea of a Thanksgiving for 30 years, and finally, President Lincoln really got it. He thought, hey, this is kind of a good idea. I mean, Civil War, we're fighting. What about one national holiday? Yeah. Pumpkin pie, that's going to heal this nation.
Yes!
So in 1863, he finally declared a national day of Thanksgiving.
Once Mr. Lincoln was sold on the idea, he made Thanksgiving a national holiday, with an official proclamation that very fall. But with the war still raging, not everyone saw this move as an attempt to unify the people. To the Confederacy, leery of Yankee culture, the new holiday threatened to cramp Dixie's lifestyle.
Well, at first the South was like, oh, great, now we have another tradition of yours we have to uphold. But as time went on and slavery was abolished, the country became more unified. Then they started to get it. There was also some really nice write-ups in women's magazines saying how nice Thanksgiving was, so it caught on.
The Southern Thanksgiving strike went on for a while, but eventually the aromas got to them.
While the South took some time to warm up to Thanksgiving, they did eventually do it, but with a little protest. Instead of pumpkin pie, they put some of their own southernness into it. Pecan pie, sweet potato pie. So it's kind of a genteel protest, and quite a delicious protest. Fortunately, the South really added on some good traditions. And then I added the a la mode. That was my idea.
Personally, all pies are welcome at my table. So this Thanksgiving, take a moment to thank Sarah Hale by raising a fork of pumpkin pie to her good work. In fact, I'm going to thank her right now. Sarah. Marshmallows. Chances are these puffy little guys did not grace the first Thanksgiving table, but at some point they made the jump from our campfires to the top of our candied yams. And whose idea was that? Do we thank big business for those sweet potato marshmallows? Find out when Food, Fact or Fiction returns. Usually it takes a true culinary genius to find the perfect balance of delicious ingredients. And then there are things no one can explain, like marshmallows on sweet potatoes. So how did they end up there? However you feel about this odd pairing, historians agree. You can take it up with the Cracker Jack Company.
When it comes to Cracker Jack, some kids never grow up.
In 1917, Cracker Jack was in the candy business. Caramel, popcorn, and, surprise, surprise, the exotic marshmallow. Perhaps too exotic. To help drive sales, Cracker Jack put out a small booklet of recipes. Most of the recipes in the book were complete duds, but one held strong. This dynamic duo has enjoyed a place of honor at our Tea-Day table ever since. And if your marshmallow surplus starts running low, don't worry, there's always some more. I just called this guy a turkey, and he didn't disagree. Just pulling your leg. Now, I'm sure you've noticed that there's a country called Turkey, too. Coincidence? After all, turkeys are from North America, right? I mean, what's the deal? Are turkeys named after Turkey? Until roughly 500 years ago, no one in Europe had even heard of a turkey.
What is this, how you say, turkey?
Let alone eaten one. But as self-proclaimed food nerd Dan Kohler explains, all that was about to change when the Spanish arrived in the New World.
As far as we can tell, the first European explorers to discover Turkey in the New World were in the party of Hernan Cortez and his expedition through Mexico in 1519, and they loved it.
Father is certainly enjoying his supper.
This amazing bird was so beloved by the conquistadors that they brought it back across the ocean to Spain and England, and the English instantly loved it. Within a decade, you find turkeys domesticated in England.
Just look at that plate.
But where did the name turkey come from? And how did it make its way to North America?
We know that the birds didn't go straight from the New World to England. They came with the Spanish conquistadors across the ocean, and then they were in the Mediterranean region, and they came back from the Mediterranean region to England on merchant ships. Now, the English knew that they were coming from that region, and they knew that region as Turkey. So they called the birds turkey birds or turkey fowl. Within a couple years, they started dropping the word bird and fowl altogether, and what they were eating was just turkey.
So if the birds had been transported via different routes, we might now be celebrating Thanksgiving by eating roast china. Or deep-fried Italy with all the trimmings. Or...
Please pass the Russia.
And as for the country of Turkey, it was named after a bird. Just kidding. The word Turkey, or Türkiye in Turkish, literally means land of human beings. Well, that's pretty accurate.
Turkey is always the star of every Thanksgiving meal. I mean, what else do you think of as the crown jewel of the table? You have mashed potatoes, of course, you have sweet potatoes, you have Brussels sprouts, but those are just peripheral information. You always have to have a turkey at the center. But of course, then it all comes down to the carving, and if you blow that, you've ruined Thanksgiving.
It's ruined!
It's no mystery why turkey is the star of most Thanksgiving dinners, rather than some other worthy contenders. It's about volume. Turkey feeds a crowd. Which is why I'm ready for a nap. Coming up, does too much turkey really tire you out? Find out when Food, Fact or Fiction returns. Thanksgiving. It's not only delicious, it's exhausting. So if you find yourself dozing on the couch next to Pop Pop after your Thanksgiving feast, you might be tempted to point the finger at poor old Tom. True. Turkey meat does contain some sleep-inducing tryptophan, an amino acid precursor to calming, feel-good serotonin. But does too much really deliver a knockout punch? Short answer, no. There's simply not enough tryptophan in turkey to send us to slumberland. And what little it does have is quickly absorbed by everything else we eat. In fact, there's more tryptophan in cheese and chicken breast than there is in turkey. The real reason you're so sleepy? Blame holiday stress, cooking fatigue, and those 2 to 5 celebratory libations. Plus, you've had a lot to eat.
Huh?
Not judging. So, how to stay awake?
Pleasant, unemotional conversation helps digestion.
Pace yourself. The holidays are a marathon, not a sprint. Eat smaller portions. Don't overindulge. And don't ask your uncle about it. Oh no, too late.
You want to see my stamp collection?
It may be the signature sound of Thanksgiving. Cranberries are done. It's hard to believe that this started out as this. So what landed these ruby beauties in a jam? Do we need a lawyer? Or has a certain attorney already been on the case? Should we thank a lawyer for canned cranberries? Cranberries are indigenous to the New World and were used by Native Americans as both food and medicine. They were called sasamanash by the Algonquin tribes, and the Pilgrims found the tart fruit much to their liking.
Look at all those cranberries! Where?
So there's a high probability cranberries had a seat at the first Thanksgiving feast. But when did these berries first slip into that special sauce? Food historian Sarah Lohman has the tart tale.
Cranberries first got made into cranberry sauce sometime in the 17th century. We're not sure exactly when, but we start to see printed recipes by the end of that century. It comes from this earlier English tradition of serving meat with a sweet sauce. So it was taking this idea of having a sweet sauce and adapting it to ingredients that were found here in America.
Ooh, tastes like home.
Fast forward to 1864. When General Ulysses S. Grant ordered cranberries to be served to Union troops as part of their official holiday meal. Many soldiers experienced the sauce for the first time. Cranberries and their sauces have been turkey's saucy sidekick ever since. But all those cranberries had to come from somewhere. No, not there.
As far as we know, the first successful commercial farmer of cranberries was a guy named Henry Hall. He was a Revolutionary War era vet, and starting in the 18-teens, he had a farm around Cape Cod. Before him, cranberries were probably only foraged, that people would just go out and pick them when they were in season. He obviously saw an opportunity and started formally farming them, and apparently he was quite successful.
But farming cranberries is definitely not a sweet gig.
Well, the cranberry bush is this little scrubby, kind of scratchy thing. And so for most of history, if you wanted cranberries, you had to harvest them by hand, one at a time. It was really tedious, time-consuming for not a lot of yield. Cranberries are very, very seasonal. So like any fruit, really, they're only available during certain months of the year. So there's maybe 6 weeks in the fall that fresh cranberries are available.
Ah, the case of the curious cranberry. It would take a visionary lawyer to crack it wide open.
You, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have a duty to perform.
So a man named Marcus Urin, he was a lawyer, and he left being a lawyer to follow a calling in cranberries, apparently. He decided that he was going to can cranberries. He started selling them canned commercially in 1912, and after that, you could have cranberries any time of the year.
Marcus saw canning as the perfect opportunity to get cranberries on the Thanksgiving table and in the cupboards of American kitchens year-round. But it wasn't until 1941 that cans of cranberry sauce first appeared on store shelves.
Cranberries are extremely high in pectin. That's a natural gelling agent. So when you cook them together with sugar and water, the result is this thing that sort of gels together, like a jelly. That's why when you pour the cranberry sauce out of the can, it has that can shape. It's gelled from all that pectin.
Plus, cranberry sauce has a shelf life of many months instead of a few days. All you have to do is open the can and serve. Nowadays, Americans consume more than 5 million gallons of canned cranberry sauce each holiday season. That's roughly 4 million pounds of cranberries.
I think that canned cranberry sauce is really all about nostalgia, which I actually think is at the center of the Thanksgiving holiday. So if somebody wants to have their canned cranberry sauce because that's the way it was always made in their family, go for it. This is exactly the type of holiday when you should have those sort of attachments to the past and the food that your family made.
The turkey dinner with tangy cranberry sauce and all the trimmings.
Making your own cranberry sauce isn't that hard. It can be a lot of fun. But in a busy holiday kitchen, you might just find yourself giving thanks for this convenient condiment. And if anyone tries to take my cranberry sauce away, I'll know what to do. Call a lawyer. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Today, we learned that pilgrims deserve our thanks, just not for mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie. Delighted over the fact that turkeys are actually named after the country, and discovered why we all plead guilty to loving a lawyer's cranberry creativity. No meal is complete without a spoonful of fact and a dash of fiction.